All right, guys, thank you for being patient. So, we had a fun thing happen. I was helping my mom and dad bid on a property, and it was supposed to be over at 5 o'clock, but we got into a bidding war like right before the end of the thing, and it kept on adding extra 5 minutes. So I apologize for being just a little bit behind, but today we're going to be talking about endowments, and what is an endowment. So thank you for waiting for me today. It was kind of fun helping my parents do that bid on that property. I'd never done it before, so they won, by the way. So we waited to the last minute and put our little bid in there, and then they won. So that was exciting. But today we're actually going to be talking about endowments. So, what is an endowment? So, let's go here. And first, I like the definition that Investopedia had. So, we talked about a few times what you can do with your 501c3 tax exemption. With your 501c3. So we talked about getting property with the land bank that you might be able to get for $1 or, a really low cost. We talked about getting a property tax, where you don't pay taxes on your property. If you're a nonprofit, you have a 501c3. If you're using that property for your for certain types of nonprofits, they don't have to pay property taxes. Sales tax exemption. I showed you how to get a liquor license. We did a whole bunch of things. So if you want to go back and look at some of those other strategies that you can do with your nonprofit, I have made a Facebook page group that has everything, all the lives that I did. I'm doing a series of 30 things that you can do with your tax exemption. You can go in there and see all of the other strategies and things that you can do, the applications to set up your stuff. But anyway, we have your endowment. So, an endowment is a donation of money or property to a nonprofit organization which uses the resulting investment income for a specific purpose. Oops, guys, I'm not showing you this. That would be nice to actually do. One moment. Okay, so an endowment can also refer to the total of a nonprofit's institutional investable assets, also known as the principal. Um, so an endowment. What is an endowment? Basically, the major key takeaways are they're designed to keep the principal amount intact. So when you get an investment or if you get a grant, you spend all of the money, and then you might hopefully do what you said you were going to do with it, and then next, maybe 3 years from now or 2 years, whenever you're able to reapply at that grant maker, you can apply again, and you spend all the money again, and then you keep going over. An endowment doesn't work that way. An endowment, they give you the money, but you don't get to spend the principal. But when you have that invested, you can use the interest or whatever the income that comes off of that endowment, that you can use continuously. So endowments are something that nonprofits can set up. You can set up an endowment fund for your nonprofit. So endowments are typically organized as a trust, a private foundation, or a public charity. Many endowments are administered by educational institutions such as colleges and universities. Here are some endowment types, which are very interesting. These are assets that can be spent, saved, invested, and distributed at the discretion of the institution receiving the gifts. So that's unrestricted. That means you don't have any restriction on if you get the money. Let's say they give you $1 million endowment. You can't spend $1 million, but let's say you have it invested in something that gets 10%. So that means every year your nonprofit will get $100,000. And if it's unrestricted, you get to spend that $100,000 the way you want to get it spent. Now, what is a term endowment? This setup usually stipulates that only after a period of time, a certain event, can the principal be expended. So the principal would be the $1 million. So after a certain event. So it could be that, the person that had the endowment passed and they say, well, at my death, they can just spend all of it. So that $1 million you've been getting $100,000 a year from, now you get to spend it if it's a term endowment. So that's how it's set up. A quasi endowment, this is donation by an individual or institution given with the intent of having that fund serve a specific purpose. So let's say that your nonprofit are basically serving a multitude of different people, but they only want you to help the youth with it. So then you would actually just use that endowment for specifically the youth. If you did elderly people or other things, you would not be able to use the money for that. And then you have restricted endowments. These have their principal held in perpetuity while the earnings from the investment assets are expended per the donor's specifications. So you basically have they'll give you the money and then they'll tell you that forever that money is going to go to your company, but you're only going to be able to get the earnings and the principal will always stay with you. So that is kind of what that is. So endowments, some of the other companies that you might know that use endowments are a lot of educational facilities, such as high-end education, such as Ivy League schools have robust endowments because their graduates donate and then they will set up that endowment. And they have come under criticism over the last year because these endowments are like huge and they're not using it for the students. So a lot of times, they come under criticism, but hey, guess what? They get to use it for what they want to use it for. It's not for someone else to tell them what to do. So as you can see, Harvard has an endowment fund of over $40 billion, but endowment funds are something that you can use for your organization. So the advantages of having an endowment fund is you always have something to fall back on if you're not getting grants in your organization. So they have those advantages. Disadvantages, sometimes the grant makers might say, well, you already have some money. And your endowment fund seems too large, and you might not get a grant maker to give you funds. But the point of having an endowment fund is to make sure that your organization is more stable. So that is kind of what I wanted to go over today was endowments. Endowment funds are very easy to set up for your organization. You can just kind of raise money for it, explain to potential donors why you are setting up your endowment fund, how you plan to use the funds and its earnings. And then basically people that are wealthy, they get a benefit for letting you use their money, and then you basically manage the endowment fund and administer it, such as like a Harvard or all of the Ivy League schools that have endowment funds. A lot of the big nonprofits have endowment funds as well. All right, guys. Again, if you are looking to get all of this information in one spot, you just need someone to help you learn how to set up an endowment fund. I can assist you as well. Just go ahead and join that Facebook group. I also have all of the lessons all in one spot for nonprofits. So thank you again for waiting for me because my parents were bidding on that property. So thank you again for that. And then join that Facebook group. Thanks, guys.